our own Andy Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I will be speaking from one of the prepared presentations from the Better Speaker series on concluding your speech. I started this a little bit with the educational focus, I think about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And as a reminder, as you're moving up into your advanced designations, you are required by Toastmasters International to present to your club an actual prepared presentation. It's not a speech that you create. It's educational information that Toastmasters would like advanced Toastmasters to get out to the clubs, especially newer Toastmasters. There is a prepared presentation. I've given a few, but I would like to tell you, as my friends, that when I brought my manual in here the other day, I left it in a rush and they threw it away. So I don't actually have it. It's not a whole manual with 5 or 10 speeches like you're used to. It's just a single pamphlet that Toastmasters sent you. Now, I have reviewed it a few times because it's a subject near and dear to my heart, so I'm going to do the best I can to not only pull out what I remember from Toastmasters educational program, but also what I have put together just from my experience on the importance of putting together a powerful conclusion. Also, I might as well tell you, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Toastmasters International sends you a CD-ROM with a PowerPoint presentation. So if you are in a venue where you can project it, you have a PowerPoint presentation, or you can print the slides, which I have made copies of and handed out, and that's what you have in front of you. I'm not trying to be recalcitrant by not having that pamphlet. It's just what happened, and because we are Toastmasters, we're going to roll with it. If you will turn to the second page, which is slide 1. Successful speech conclusions. And everyone here has seen a number of speeches. Everyone here has been evaluated. Typically when you're evaluated, the Toastmaster or your evaluator will talk about, well, your introduction left me a little flat, or it was great. Then they'll talk about the body parts, the different sections of the meat of your speech, and especially if you're working on, let's say, something in your competent communicator, which is directing you to work on a specific tool or strength. They'll talk about that with regard in relation to the body of your speech. And then it seems 99% of the time, 95% of the time, they talk about your conclusion as, well, your conclusion left me a little this, or left me a little that, or you should have done this in your conclusion, you should have added this. Why is that? Well, what I've discovered with Toastmasters speeches, because we are timed, and in some clubs, like my original club, they start dinging you and buzzing you, and you get the message. I have seen people who were going overboard to make a passive-aggressive statement literally get buzzed off the stage. You couldn't hear yourself think.
Wow.
It's a little mature, but it happened. Why does that happen in general? Because the conclusion, which is arguably the most important part, is the only part that you run out of time. No one ever runs out of time on their introduction, do they? No one ever runs out of time on their first point, or their second point, or their story. But all of a sudden, you're up there, and the yellow light comes on, and then the red, wait a minute, there's only 15 seconds between the yellow and the red light. What happened there? It wasn't a minute. You have to finish, and sometimes, when I was beginning, I hadn't even started my conclusion yet. So what do? You wrap it up real fast, you start sweating, you take out half of it, or 90% of it, and it leaves everybody a little flat and empty. That's what we're going to talk about now. What's a conclusion? What are the successful components? Achieving closure, making an impact, summarizing your main point. You want to take 5 to 10% of your time. Now, you want to take only 5 to 10% of your time, but the other side of the coin is you also want to make sure you take at least 5 to 10% of your time on that conclusion. Achieving closure, that's bringing it home, wrapping it up, coming full circle. Making an impact, That is their final impression of you, whether it's the group of Toastmasters or whether it's a completely new audience and venue where they've asked you to speak. Their final impression of you is going to be the impact created with that conclusion. Summarizing your main points, has everybody ever heard the cliche, tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them, and then tell them what you told them? It's old, but it is so true, and if you leave that last part out, tell them what you told them, you will leave them flat. If you'll turn to the second slide, here are some closing techniques. Use a quotation. Today's tax day as a theme. I looked up a quotation. Christopher Meyer said, if I was giving a speech on taxes or I was a Toastmaster, Christopher Meyer said, new taxes should be a last resort, not an option. Well, if you're speaking to a group of people about no new taxes, that would be a powerful quotation. Tell me a story. Stories are a great speech technique, but a small anecdote in the conclusion can be very powerful. Call for action. That is the one right there that Toastmasters most often hear in their evaluations. You didn't have a call to action. You need a stronger call to action. Why? Because in a short speech, that is what makes people think. Ask a rhetorical question. What are you going to do when you leave here today based on the information I told you? It just makes people think. Refer to the beginning. Again, that's part of the wrapping it up, bringing it home idea, and repeat your main points. Tell them what you're going to tell them, and make sure you tell them what you told them. You can't leave that out. If you go to the very last slide, write out your closing, then memorize it, end on time, and don't add new points. That's what people do. They get nervous. Ooh, I haven't made this good enough. Ooh, and I just thought of something else. That's for your next speech. Be a professional, polished speaker. Stay on task, stay on your speech. The most important thing I want to leave you with is you have to remember your powerful closing is the most important part. Time your speech from the end. Who knows how long your speech goes? 5 to 7, when really every time you've done it, 6 minutes, 30 seconds, correct? Time your speech from the end. If you have a 7-minute speech, where in your speech do you have to be at when that green light comes on so that you can start your conclusion successfully? If the green light comes on and you haven't gotten there yet, take some of the body out, but don't short circuit that powerful conclusion. You used to tell us on our high school football team, you have to give 100% on every play, because your last play is what they're going to remember you by. Well, your conclusion is how you're going to leave your audience. Mr. Coach.